I'm only joking, he said, patting Harry genially on the back and sending him face first into the table. I knew you hadn't really. I told Lockhart you didn't need to. You're more famous than him without trying. Betty didn't like that, said Harry, sitting up and rubbing his chin. Don't think he did, said Hagrid, his eyes twinkling. And then I told him I never read one of his books, and he decided to go. Treacle fudge, Ron, he added as Ron reappeared. No thanks, said Ron weakly. Better not risk it. Come and see what I've been growing, said Hagrid as Harry and Hermione finished off the last of their tea. In the small vegetable patch behind Hagrid's house were a dozen of the largest pumpkins Harry had ever seen. Each was the size of a large boulder. Getting on well, aren't they? Said Hagrid happily. For the Halloween feast. Should be big enough by then. What have you been feeding them? Said Harry. Hagrid looked over his shoulder to check that they were alone. I've been giving them, you know, a bit of help. Harry noticed Hagrid's flowery pink umbrella still leaning against the back wall of the cabin. Harry had had reason to believe before now that this umbrella was not all it looked. In fact, he had the strong impression that Hagrid's old school wand was concealed inside it. Hagrid wasn't supposed to use magic. He had been expelled from Hogwarts in his 3rd year, but Harry had never found out why. Any mention of the matter, and Hagrid would clear his throat loudly and become mysteriously deaf until the subject was changed. An engorgement charm, I suppose, said Hermione, halfway between disapproval and amusement. Well, well, you've done a good job on them. That's what your little sister said Hagrid, nodding at Ron. Met her just yesterday. Hagrid looked sideways at Harry, his beard twitching. Said she was just looking around the grounds, but I reckon she was hoping she might run into someone else at my house. She winked at Harry. If you ask me, she wouldn't say no to a signed, "Oh, shut up," said Harry. Ron snorted with laughter and the ground was sprayed with slugs. Watch it, said Hagrid roared, pulling Ron away from his precious pumpkins. It was nearly lunchtime, and as Harry had only one bit of treacle fudge since dawn, he was keen to go back to school and to eat. They said goodbye to Hagrid and walked back up to the castle, Ron hiccoughing occasionally, only to bring up 2 very small slugs. They had barely set foot inside the cool entrance hall when a voice rang out. There you are, Potter! Weasley! Professor McGonagall was walking toward them, looking stern. You will both do your detentions this evening. What are we doing, Professor? Said Ron, nervously suppressing a burp. You will be polishing the silver in the trophy room with Mr. Filch, said Professor McGonagall. And no magic, Weasley. Elbow grease. Ron gulped. Argus Filch, the caretaker, was loathed by every student in the school. I can't read today, apparently. And you, Potter, will be helping Professor Lockhart answer his fan mail, said Professor McGonagall. Oh, no. Professor, can't I go do the trophy room too? Said Harry desperately. Certainly not, said Professor McGonagall, raising her eyebrows. Professor Lockhart requested you particularly. 8 o'clock sharp, both of you. Harry and Ron slouched into the great hall in states of the deepest gloom, Hermione behind them, wearing a, well, you did break school rules sort of expression. Harry didn't enjoy his shepherd's pie as much as he had thought. Both he and Ron felt they had gotten the worst deal. Filch will have me there all night, said Ron heavily. No magic. There must be about 100 cups in that room. I'm no good at muggle cleaning. I'd swap any time, said Harry hollowly. I've got loads of practice with the Dursleys. Answering Lockhart's fan mail, he'll be a nightmare. Saturday afternoon seemed to melt away, and in what seemed like no time, It was 5 minutes to 8, and Harry was dragging his feet along the second floor corridor to Lockhart's office. He gritted his teeth and knocked. The door flew open at once. Lockhart beamed down at him. "Ah, there's the scalawag," he said. "Come in, Harry, come in." Shining brightly on the walls by the light of many candles were countless framed photographs of Lockhart. He had even signed a few of them. Another large pile lay on his desk. "You can address the envelopes," Lockhart told Harry, as though this was a huge treat. "The first one is to Gladys Gudgeon. Gladys Gudgeon. Bless her. Huge fan of mine." The minutes snailed by. Harry let Lockhart's voice wash over him, occasionally saying, right, yeah. Now and then he caught a phrase like, "Fame's a fickle friend, Harry," or "Celebrity is as celebrity does. Remember that." The candles burned lower and lower, making the light dance over the many moving faces of Lockhart watching him. Harry moved his aching hand over what felt like the 1,000th envelope, writing out Veronica Smedley's address. It must nearly be time to leave, Harry thought miserably. Please let it be nearly time. And then he heard something quite apart from the spitting of the dying candles and Lockhart's prattle about his fans. It was a voice to chill to the bone marrow, a voice of breathtaking, ice-cold venom. "Come to me. Let me rip you. Let me tear you. Let me kill you." Harry gave a huge jump, and a large lilac blot appeared on Veronica Smedley's street. "The what? What?" he said loudly. "I know," said Lockhart. 6 solid months at the top of the bestseller list. Broke all records." "No," said Harry frantically. "That voice." "Sorry?" said Lockhart, looking puzzled. "What voice?" That voice that said, didn't you hear it?" Lockhart was looking at Harry in high astonishment. "What are you talking about, Harry? Perhaps you're getting a little drowsy. Great Scott, look at the time. We've been here nearly 4 hours. I've never have believed it. The time's flown, hasn't it?" Harry didn't answer. He was straining his ears to hear the voice again, but there was no sound now except for Lockhart telling him he mustn't expect a treat like this every time he got detention. Feeling dazed, Harry left. It was so late that the Gryffindor common room was almost empty. Harry went straight up to the dormitory. Ron wasn't back yet. Harry pulled on his pajamas, got into bed, and waited. Half an hour later, Ron arrived, nursing his right arm and bringing a strong smell of polish into the darkened room. "My muscles have seized up," he groaned, sinking onto the bed. 14 times he made me buff that Quidditch cup before he was satisfied. And then I had another slug attack all over a special award for services to the school. Took ages to get the slime off. How was it with Lockhart?" Keeping his voice low so not to wake Neville, Dean, and Seamus, Harry told Ron exactly what he had heard. "And Lockhart said that he couldn't hear it?" said Ron. Harry could see him frowning in the moonlight. "Do you think he was lying? But I don't get it. Even someone invisible would have had to open the door." "I know," said Harry, lying back in his four-poster and staring at the canopy above him. "I don't get it either."